Hey guys, I'm here with Darrell Thomas, who wrote a book, An Excellent Life, How to a True and Lasting Success is Achieved. And Darrell reached out to me, wanted to talk on this podcast, and I was happy to do just hearing his story and how it connects with his faith and how it interacts with Christ and all that. So I was very excited to have Darrell on. Darrell, thank you for being here. And before we get into the whole show, maybe give a brief introduction on who exactly you are.
Right. Yeah. Hi, Adam. Thank you. I really appreciate the chance to visit with you and your guests, your listeners. Um, Live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Have for the last 28 or so years from the Atlanta area, and started a business back in 1995 that I still operate today with my wife and daughter. That has been very gratifying to us to be able to work together. And it's interesting when you work with family; it can be very bad or very good. And this has always been an excellent experience. So we're blessed to have that. And I think a lot of that is because of our faith and that we we operate with that in mind 100% of the time, or at least try to. So I love this type of supporting this type of podcast and reaching out to your listeners.
Awesome. So, from the brief information that I got, it sounds like where you started this whole business is you kind of got in a rut, so to speak, because it sounds like you ended up taking a move and then all of a sudden you were laid off. How did this whole process start of you starting a business, and how does that actually intertwined with your faith?
Right. Well, it's interesting. You know, you don't ever know what's around the next corner, right? So I'd always been really successful. Was in the car business for a long time, real estate investor, and had a couple of things that happened kind of in succession that had me go from having a lot of cash on hand to almost none, and doing some soul searching, and so much so that with a few negative events, I just decided, hey, I'm just going to go sit on the beach and kind of figure things out, pray a little bit, figure out what I need to do next. And literally, I'm at Daytona Beach. This is this is the spring of 1995, and I audibly hear in my head, not outside of that, get up off the sand and go back to Atlanta, and oddly get into the carpet cleaning business, which I knew nothing about. So I'm like, okay, that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do. So that's what I did. I went to work for a company in Atlanta. Started the day after Memorial Day, 95, was with that company for about a month as a technician. Now I'm one of the most experienced guys they have. So now I'm the training manager. Did that for another month or so. Then they moved me to Charlotte to run an office that they had here. And I moved everything that I have here. Now you think about everything that you own, right? Everything that I owned was in their shop, including all my money, right? They had a floor safe that I put all my cash in, which was pretty substantial. And 3 weeks in, the IRS shows up one day and closes the building. They take everything that's in that building, which includes everything that I own. So I went from feeling like, okay, I'm at a point where I can rebuild things, to how do I overcome this? Because are you familiar with what is referred to as a SWOT analysis?
No,
Strengths,
I'm not.
weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, SWOT. So I did that real fast in my head. And I'm like, wow, my strengths are I'm 34 years old. I'm physically strong. I have a little bit of a foundation in this and other businesses. Weaknesses, to stay in the business I'm in, I don't know much about it. 2 months, 3 months experience. Opportunities, whatever I choose for them to be. Threats were all over the place. My assets at that time I had a car that was paid for, but I had a half tank of gas, one change of clothes, and $35. So what does any budding entrepreneur do when they have $35 to their name? They start a business, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I did literally that same day, which happened to be my daughter's second birthday. I went to a company and I couldn't get a pager, but I could get a phone number. And then I went to Kinko's and created a flyer. And literally that day I started advertising for my own business, though I didn't even own a carpet cleaning machine. Sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith and walk out across the water. So that's what I did. And literally the next day, I was able to figure out how to get a machine and started doing jobs. And just with faith and one foot in front of the other, I've been able to build the business to be a little bit bigger today than it was yesterday for the last 28 years. And now we're the largest non-franchise, like you're familiar with Stanley Steamer and Zero Res.
Hmm.
They're a little bit bigger than us here in Charlotte. But of the non-franchised, independently owned, we're the largest in Charlotte, probably in this region, and been able to build something that we can be pretty proud of. But basically, it started with just a leap of faith and being obedient,
Yeah,
because I certainly had no idea where things were going, or what was going to happen. But fortunately, when you start out like that, the line between success and disaster is really, really thin. Fortunately, I didn't have to find out what that was like. But I viewed it a little bit like this was pre-reality show. I was viewing it a little bit like, well, okay, I'm stuck on the island, and I have to figure out how to get off. And so that's what I did.
So, what was your mentality when all that goes down? Do you? Because I have to imagine initially you're probably getting very upset, very frustrated about the whole situation, maybe even cursing God, for instance, because you feel like you were called to go do this. How do you navigate that minefield of self-doubt, of just over complicating your thought process and thinking that maybe you need to revert back and go back to something else?
Right. Well, in the middle of that SWOT analysis, I could have gone back into the car business. I could have got into real estate. I had no money. I knew I couldn't wait 2 weeks for a paycheck, right? Because you start a job today, you're not getting paid for at least a week and a half, right? And I didn't have any clothes. I mean, basically what I had was a bunch of, shorts and T-shirts and things like this. Not much of that. So I didn't consider anything else other than, hey, I'm just going to try to make some money by cleaning carpet, right? I didn't get angry. I was frustrated because it seemed like, wow, this isn't fair. We've all been there. And honestly, it never occurred to me, it still doesn't to this day, to get mad at God for things that go wrong. I mean, I think I was just glad when he finally took his foot off my throat, if you can identify with that, because it was, I don't know, it was frustrating. It was upsetting and all those things, but I just didn't let it bother me. I mean, we all have a choice in what our attitude is like, or how we choose to view things. And for me, it was just like, okay, for whatever reason, this is where I'm at. That's not going to change because I'm mad or angry or upset or blame anybody. I just instinctively knew that I was where I was because of the decisions and choices that I made, even though I couldn't help exactly what had happened. I just viewed it like, okay, this is where I am. Tomorrow's a different day, and I'm gonna work every day to be better tomorrow than I was today, and still doing that.
That's a great mindset, because I've been recently reading this book, The Return of the Prodigal Son, and it
So,
talks about the elder son being so upset about everything, and kind of the author dives into this Rembrandt painting and how there's so many intricate parts, and the elder son is so in his own thoughts, so upset that the whole world around him doesn't kind of conform to what he wants, and he kind of dives deeper into this sort of depression, and it results in him not finding joy in joy. And I feel like that's something that it sounds like a lot of people, when they suffer those types of instances, like you yourself, you can easily fall into that pit of despair of just saying, oh, why is this me? And then kind of just giving in to that ability of nothing good happens to me, nothing will ever really come from all of this, and kind of spiral down and be that type of individual where now nothing really ends up making you happy because of that one instance where you finally just decide, I'm just going to be complaining and giving in to the despair, which is a good sign. Well, obviously it's a good sign you're where you are now because you didn't end up doing that.
right. Yeah. I mean, when something like that happens, and I have to say it's even worse than I just described, because the company that I worked for, that was putting me up at a hotel, and when I thought, well, at least I can just go back here and crash and maybe take a nap and kind of try to get my bearings back, maybe take a shower. And I walked past the office to get to my room, and I noticed my luggage sitting in the office. They checked that they had written them for the previous week bounced, so I'm being booted from
Oh,
this
wow.
hotel. I mean, this is an hour after I left the business that I just worked at, and I'm like, wow. So what do I do? What really saved me was, and this is a God thing totally. This was on a Tuesday. The previous Friday, I had walked into a pawn shop at the behest of the guy that owned that company because somebody had stolen a piece of equipment. And he says, well, you need to let the pawn shops know because they'll probably try to sell it, right? So I walked into this pawn shop. I'd never been in there before. And I'm looking at the guy behind the counter like, wow, I'm supposed to know this guy. Turned out his name was Dan Gray, and he worked for me 10 years earlier in the car business. And so we kind of had this bit of a reunion. And as I'm looking around the pawn shop, I find a piece of carpet cleaning equipment that he didn't even know what it was. He just thought it was a big shop vac. It's a portable cleaning system, right? So I'm showing him what it is and how it works, and we're finding stuff to go with it. And then I just kind of left. And, a few days later, I go back and say, hey, man, can I borrow that machine? And, if I hadn't known him, there was no way they would have done that. So walking into that pawn shop on that Friday and being able to say, hey, I have this equipment here that I can at least go figure out a way to make it work. That's what saved me. If I had to go buy equipment or rent equipment, I just couldn't have done it. I mean, let's say that the phone number cost me $17.50, and so did the flyers. I was out of money. I had nothing left. I don't think I could have at that point even made it back to Atlanta or anywhere close to it with the gas I had in the car. So I was pretty well toast. But yeah, sometimes you just say, hey, this is where I'm at. What do I do now? And the pity party just doesn't work. I didn't have, even if I wanted to do that, I didn't have time for it.
Yeah, and it is kind of amazing that did happen, and God works in mysterious ways. And
right.
It's in that moment, were there conversations that you were trying to offering up prayers, just saying, hey, God, I know it feels like this is all crazy, but I'm just giving my life up to you, and I'm just going to let you take me where I need to go.
Have you ever prayed over a stack of flyers? That's what I did. I think I had about 250 flyers, 4 up on a 8.5 by 11 page, right? And I put those out in the middle of the night that night, and I'm like, wow, okay. Oh, I should add this in. When I go to Kinko's, they're like, okay, so this is what we can do. This is how much it costs. Because the question was, how many flyers can I get for $17.50, right? And he tells me, so fine, let's do that. He says, well, where's your template? I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Well, what we're going to print from? Well, I don't have that. Oh, we can make you one for $20. So I said, well, I don't have that. I just kind of sat there a minute, and I noticed an old Yellow Pages phone book. Some people listening won't even know what that is, right? The Yellow Pages. So I asked if I could borrow that, and I literally cut out letters and made my flyer from that. It looked like a ransom note. So I had that printed up, put out the 200 and however many there were overnight. The next day I had 3 phone calls, and it's just a voicemail. So I don't hear a phone ring, and they're just leaving messages. 2 of them were hang-ups, and then the third one was a guy named Timothy Allen Davis. And I cleaned his carpet and carpet for a friend of his that next day, and made like $150, and that's where this all started.
That's amazing.
I felt like, wow, that was all the money in the world, because to me, it was all the money in the world. And so I just said, hey, I'm just going to act like, again, this is a reality show. Again, they didn't exist then, but that was my mentality. And I'm just going to figure it out and have fun with it. And so I'm sleeping in my car. The carpet cleaning equipment's in the trunk and in the back seat. And I was at peace with it. And I think if I had a different view or different attitude, I would have talked myself out of what I ultimately did, which was just to let it roll. Because my concerns were very few at that time. It was just taking care of my daughter who was with family. And and just being able to work the next day. And so put one foot in front of the other and just keep going with your eye on the goal.
And how long did it take you where you finally felt more comfortable with the whole situation of the business? Was it kind of quick, or was it just a long, arduous process and it's
I don't
been
know,
a few
10
years?
years.
10 years, or you finally?
That's an interesting question, because once you get things going, you're always, anybody that's an entrepreneur or business owner that tells you that they're not worried every day that this all might go away is either crazy or they're lying to you, because you always have it in your gut that, wow, I need to be working every day on my business and on myself to have things improve. I did it by myself for 6 years before I started hiring employees. And that to me was a big responsibility. Now I'm not just responsible for myself, but I'm responsible for others and their family. And I still feel that way today. When we bring somebody on in our business, it's a responsibility. And we've learned to hire very well. We've learned to hire based on values and common beliefs. I can teach anybody that wants to learn how to do this business, but I can't make them care. I can't make them a good person, and I certainly can't make them honest. So, but yeah, it's just, sit down, figure out where you're going, know why you want to get there, what's your reason behind it all, and then do everything within your power to honor yourself, honor God, and build it in a way where you're going to not have any regrets. No excuses, no regrets.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a good message these days is the idea of honoring God in the work that you do. Because I think a lot of times, especially the younger generation, which I'm a part of, where we want everything like now and be gratified this instance, and not realize that our vocation, the things, not just fatherhood is part of vocation, but also the things that we do and the things that we provide is a way that we can reflect Christ in the everyday world. And I think that's a good message to put forward, is that you have to keep going each and every day, because I mean, God calls us to work. It's something that we will be doing. It's just, I feel like people have this mentality of they want to relax, whereas realistically, anybody out there, if you've relaxed for too long, at least me personally, I get anxious and I need to be doing something. So
Right.
I think what you wrote this book. So what are the main messages behind the book?
I think the first one is that if you think you're doing this for yourself, you're not. I mean, living your life. I don't know how people, honestly, I was raised in the church. I was raised Methodist. I go to a non-denominational church now here in Charlotte and have for over 2 decades. I don't. So I say that because I don't know how it is to not be in a good church, to not follow Christ, to not have that as your reference point, right? That's always been with me. So I feel fortunate in that way because I have those values to lean on. So when when you find yourself having issues or problems or whatnot, I have a very easy time reverting back to the lessons I learned when I was in middle school and high school, and the good people in my church. And I was always involved in sports. And ironically, then I don't know that I ever had a coach that wasn't a Christian. And that was a big thing because you don't want to let, how do you say this? You're operating with your own integrity, and you don't want to let other people down. I never wanted my actions to reflect negatively on the people that I cared about and that put trust in me, the mentors that I had, not direct mentors, but the people in my life that were able to breathe life into me as a young person and as a Christian. I think I don't want to let God down, but I didn't want to let these people down either, and it mattered to me what they thought of me. Maybe it shouldn't that much sometimes, but it does, because if they expect that you're going to conduct yourself in your life in a way that honors yourself, your family, your friends, and Christ, and then you don't do that, right? That can be a heavy burden, at least to me. So I always maybe that's the wrong reason to do things, but I looked at it like, wow, I don't want to disappoint these people. And I think in the middle of that, you figure out why you don't want to disappoint them. It's not just about disappointing them. It's a higher calling to do things in a way that honors Christ.
Yeah.
So
And I think if you have that, like you were saying, if you have that foundation of Christ, you're more likely going to pick yourself up because you have Christ and the Father to hold you and comfort you during these difficult times. And
right.
Now with today's day and age, which is awful to see, you see so many younger people becoming, what is it called now, nuns, or where they don't have any religious beliefs, where that's a big thing now. And I can only imagine if you're in that situation that you were in and you don't have this trust in Christ, or you don't have this trust in God, you are more likely to give into the nihilistic tendencies that you see with a lot of atheists, where there's the whole world just matters this point in time, and it's only material things, and I don't have this material thing, so now it all becomes pointless. And I think having the importance of having the foundation of Christ, so you feel comforted and you have, at the very minimum, I don't want to understate Christ is maximum, but at the minimum, you have him as your foundation, you have him as your support, and then you add on top of that family and friends. That allows you to bounce back more rapidly than if you are just an atheist that cares all about material things, and then all of your world is shattered and you have no more material things. You can't do that. It all feels lost. And I think that's a lot of times what you see with the problems with the world today is everyone's very materialistic, and that's why you focus just on the material aspects of it, and then that can lead you down negative routes when the world naturally is going to go through ups and downs, and you're not going to have as much stuff as you did before, where you need to rely on something more transcendent than just the material.
Right. Well, if it's about where you place your value, right? I right from the start of all that, I was very much at peace with it. And again, I'm kind of treating this like it's a bit of a game. It wasn't a game by any stretch, but I knew that no matter what, I can make mistakes, and things could probably not go well or whatever it is, but I still had Christ. I still had my family. I still had those things that I knew I could fall back on. I didn't want to have to depend on anybody other than Christ, because I knew all the way through that he had his hand on me. It's like, hey man, it's going to be okay. Just don't freak out. So, and I just had a peace about it. So, I don't know how others would react. That's how I did. Hopefully I think I made the right choices and decisions. And part of it was having a real long-term vision about it. It wasn't like I said, oh, well, I've got to be at this point in the next 30 days, unrealistically so. I just wanted, what I did was, quite frankly, I said, look, I don't have money to waste. So I'm going to be very conservative with what I spend money on. I mean, I literally try this. I said, okay, I need to eat, right? That's take care of my daughter and eat. Those were the top two priorities. So I literally just bought a loaf of bread, like whole wheat bread. That was week one, a loaf of bread, and I drank water. I think I actually did that for about 3 weeks, and then I added peanut butter, get some Jif, right? And did that for a couple of weeks. And then I graduated to, now I get jelly, right? Dave Ramsey talks about beans and rice. That was way down the road, beans and rice. So I just said, look, I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to become more disciplined. I'm kind of odd in that to this day I eat one meal a day. I don't eat breakfast. I don't eat lunch. I eat dinner. I don't really snack. I drink water all day long. It doesn't matter what I do. If I stay to that regimen, I'm 167 pounds, a little more, a little less, depending on the time of day. And so I just set these goals. For example, I had to have $5,000 before I allowed myself to sleep indoors, like go rent a room, right? So I was just in my car. And then from there, I forget what the next milestone was, but I did not allow myself to become undisciplined in my approach to all that, because again, I wanted a long-term vision, long-term approach to it. and that's what paid off, because you can't go through life assuming that everything's going to be perfect, right? You hope for the best and plan for the worst, and allow for mistakes. So that's what I did, and it took me a couple of years, quite honestly, to be able to get to a point. Like somebody asked me how long it took before I was able to feel like I had a normal existence. It was about 3 years before I feel like I'm back to where I was pre those circumstances. So, and I didn't mind. I mean, I didn't. I just took care of my daughter and worked. That was it. And oddly, over the years, she works for me. Right? She has for a long time, and technically, she's been in this business as long as I have. It's been fun.
That's great, and I think you mentioned the importance of having a mentors in your life before we actually hit record. But you were talking about the importance of mentors, how normally I mean, it's a classic thing you hear nowadays, but the top 5 people you spend the most time with kind of shape who you are. And I want to just give it off to you of what the importance of having those good role models, those good mentors, the good people around you.
Right. That quote comes from Jim Rohn, by the way. Your character is the sum total of the 5 people you're around the most. I had it easy because I was just around myself. I didn't develop friends. It took me a long time to do that. But having mentors, for me, the first thing that I did, I went to the library. I didn't seek out physical mentors. I read books. Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, anything that I could get my hands on, including the Bible, to just feed myself the pure information, positive information, to keep my focus in the right place. That's what I did. I learned every Bible verse that I could find on having a positive attitude, on living with enthusiasm, on being optimistic. So my mentors in the beginning were people that were where I wanted to be, but they weren't physical mentors. They weren't people within my community at that time. When I could develop relationships at church, that's one thing I never stopped doing. I went to a series of very good churches back then that with pastors that I admire, and just immersed myself. I refused to allow myself to be around anything that was negative. As soon as I was around a negative person, I literally would just have to go read to figure out, okay, how do I get that out of my mind, and how do I reset my attitude to stay focused? But mentoring is big for me. I mean, people don't realize the people who are way up there that have mentors. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg was mentored by Steve Jobs, right? Bill Gates was mentored by Warren Buffett. Every major athlete, by the time they make it to college, or certainly the pros or Olympics, they've had dozens upon dozens of coaches that help them fine tune their game, both mental and physical. And we're not any different. We have to have people breathing life into us, paying attention to what we're doing in spite of what we say, right? And to be able to keep us on track. I encourage everybody to have somebody in their life that does that for them. And you might have separate mentors for personal versus business. I think that's really important. One thing that's big in my church is mentorism for people. You need to have a mentor. Doesn't matter what age you are, you need to be a mentor. So there's always somebody that you can help and that you can be able to keep headed in the right direction. But for me, that's always been big.
So let's put you in this mentorship role now. Is somebody comes to you, say a young kid who wants to start his own business, what are your first questions that you would say ask him to kind of guide him or her to start this business?
The first thing would be to know why you want to work for yourself. There's a book called The E-Myth. E is for entrepreneurial, by a guy named Michael Gerber. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, it's a good book.
I've had an opportunity to spend about a half a day with Michael Gerber in a back of a limousine driving through Houston, Texas. And amazing guy. But he says that people, businesses don't go out of business for the traditional reasons that most people think, that they're underfunded or bad economy or whatever it is. I don't know that I bought into this initially, but I've since learned that, hey, look, this is absolutely true. Most businesses fail. The vast majority of businesses go out of business because they never should have started it in the first place. He refers to that as people having what he calls an entrepreneurial spasm, where they say, any idiot could run a business like this. I should know. I work for one. So they start the business assuming something that's incorrect. Just because you know how to provide the service that a business provides does not mean that you are qualified to run a business that provides that service. And it's a unique set of skills that can do both the technical side, where it's a service company or a restaurant, or you're doing nails or whatever it is, and can effectively run the business that provides the service. So that's the first thing. You have to know why you even want to be in business, because when it gets really hard, your why might just be all you have. So for me, it's that.
Yeah, and I think what now, say they have a good why, how does that relate to because you have the world around you saying you should be one way, or how you should, how do you maybe tune out the world to tell you that if you have a good idea, this is the business that you should do, and not, because I'm sure there's probably people, maybe they didn't say it to you, but they have thought that you starting this carpet business without any prior experience may not be the best idea. How do you tune out and know that this is the right direction that I should go in? Because I'm sure there's plenty of people, I'm being one of them, where I get pulled in. I have this idea over here, this idea over here. How do you hone in on the singular focus?
Right. Well, for me, it's a little different than most. I didn't have any options. This is, I mean, at a certain point, I could have said, well, I'm going to go back to doing something else. But I was seeing enough success, and always is just enough, right, to keep me engaged. But I was, and I think I did something very well right from the start. Is I decided I'm not going to have a personal life except just taking care of my daughter again. So I didn't worry about developing friends or anything like that. I just said, look, if I'm awake, I'm going to be working. I didn't watch television. I didn't do anything else. And this was my schedule. I put out flyers in the beginning, and I realized pretty quick that I can only do that 3 days a week, because I have to have time to actually work and make money. So I was working 3 days a week for free, putting out flyers. And then I actually make money 3 to 4 days a week, depending on what was going on. And so the next thing I started doing was I had a bunch of signs printed up, just basic signs that talked about what I did. And that was a lot better, because I could spend maybe an evening a week putting those out and get phone calls all week long. But I think it's just a matter of figuring out, for me, okay, I have a certain amount of resources. I can have a certain number of hours in the day. What can I do to make best benefit of that? I basically decided, until further notice, I'm going to work 7 days a week, and my ox was continually in a ditch. So even when I had my daughter, she was with me. She would go with me to clean carpet, and that was our fun time. You know, I mean, I don't know how much fun my daughter had growing up with me, but I had a blast. Our motto was play till we puke, right? we worked till we did that. But it was, I don't know, it was just, I just made it a game, like I said, and I just decided that I'm going to just put my head down and have a very narrow list of the things that I allowed to have my attention. But for a new guy starting out, you really have to put a lot into it. I don't think it can be overstated how much work, time, effort, and energy it takes in the beginning to get a business started. It's always more than you think. The other is that you want to start really, really small. You don't want to have expenses. To this day, we don't have debt. We built the business over the years with zero debt. That's what saved us during the 2008 financial crisis. It's what saved us again during COVID. The fact that we don't have payments, we don't have debt service. We can do anything we want to because of that. But again, the question was about somebody new starting out. When I started this business, there was no such thing as the internet. There was not even a supply house to buy equipment or supplies here in Charlotte. So it was a disadvantage and a big advantage, because I didn't have other people to talk to about this. I didn't have people trying to talk me out of something. I didn't have people trying to talk me into something. I just did what I felt like was the right thing for me to do. And because of that, I had nobody else to blame. Isn't that interesting? Well, they told me to do this and it didn't work. No, I didn't have that. It's all on me. And I was really, really careful how I spent money. I mean, to me, spending $50 on something, even if it was a piece of equipment, that was a major purchase. So I always had the mentality that whatever I spend money on outside of what's necessary, I just didn't do it until I had to. And if I had to work a little bit more to earn the money or whatever it was, that's just what I did. So I had an easy time staying focused, because when things went well, okay, now I feel good about myself. When things would go bad, I have nobody else to blame. So knowing why you want to do things, have a good solid game plan, you have to be laser focused with discipline, and be careful who you allow into your life at that time. Stay positive minded. That's when you definitely want to be. If you have a mentor, he needs to be a good quality one that knows how to give you the right type of advice. Don't pay attention to what you see online. And I figured out that Google doesn't really know. So there's a lot of ways you can trip yourself up. But for me, most of those was by listening to people that probably don't know any more than you do. Right.
Yeah. That's a good point, because I think a lot of people operate in society as fear-based, of always not knowing where things are going, and they just have this excess fear, and they kind of put that fear onto you.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
So how now that you're growing the business and faith is an important part, how do you integrate? How does your faith kind of affect your business as it's growing? Are there aspects of your faith that kind of intertwine? Because I mean, faith I believe, is interconnected with everything that we do, that it naturally will flow into the business that you're starting and building up.
Right. One thing that I had right from the beginning was that I realized that, wow, I'm meeting people through this business that I wouldn't see any other way. And let's just argue that because of the way I was advertising, I was kind of getting the lower echelon clients. And I saw people that were really, really, that really humbled me. And one guy in particular, I wish I could tell you his name, but this was the end of a long Saturday. It's one of these days, it's just been raining all day long. And I'm getting to my last job at about 8:30 at night, right? Way out in the country. Outside of Charlotte, and I'm not wanting to be there. I'm like, wow, I am dog tired. I should have not taken this job. It took me 30 minutes to get here in the wrong direction. And I get there with less than a positive attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
Though I'm not kind of allowing the client to pick up on my negative vibe. I did not want to be there, right? And this was a really low end house. And the guy was obviously kind of exhausted himself. Yeah, he opened the door. Yeah, buddy, come on in. And we talk about what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make $40 doing this job. It's going to take me an hour to get home, right? So I'm probably getting to bed at 11 o'clock because of this. So inside myself, I'm like, wow, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous. I'm not really making any money, and this is not a good client. And then he looks at me. He's just kind of walking in the room and watching what I'm doing. He says, man, you have really got it licked. I'm like, what? You talking to me? And in the middle of my mental pity party there, I said, what do you mean? He goes, you know how long I have to work to net $40? I'm like, no, how long do you have to work? And for him, that was about a half day's work, right? And he was my sixth job that day. Mm-hmm. I'd already made, hundreds of dollars, and I'm complaining to myself about the end of my day. And that's been 27, almost 28 years ago. And I still remember the emotions of that. I literally teared up hearing him say that. And I still do. And when I finished the job, he hands me the $40, and I just handed it right back to him and said, look, man, gave him a big hug. I said, I got more out of this than you did. And I never forgot that. I think for me, sometimes in life we just have to be humbled. I didn't view myself that way. That hey, look, I've got some lessons to learn. I don't think we ever really admit to that. But I think God just puts you through things that you may not see why you need it now, but later on you're able to draw from that. And for me, a big part of it was just being able to meet people that I would have not met any other way, right? He put me in the middle of a class of people that I needed to be able to understand. And I think that's what that whole thing was about. That, you think you're up here and I need for you to be down here, and just bear with me. And I somehow or another, I just instinctively understood that. And I just kept being reminded of that I've grown up. I grew up very middle class, but we had advantages that other people just don't have. And through that was being able to participate in sports, and it was being able to be involved with a good church and around good quality people. Not everybody has that background. Not everybody has that opportunity. And over the first several years, I was trying to build the foundation of what I'm doing now. I just kept being reminded of that, and I never forgot it. I still see situations like that, even though we're considered kind of a high-end company now. I see people every day or every week that remind me of those people, but they're in a totally different economic situation, but they have the same issues and the same problems. And because of that, I think I'm able to offer empathy and understanding that may have come from no other place or no other way than because I was in that situation for so long. So that really helped me.
I think it's we all struggle with the main sin of pride. That's just always just difficult to, and it's just pride being like, oh, in your case, it's, oh, I shouldn't be here. Not that you feel like you're bigger, but you're still going to go through those natural emotions and feelings. And then I think in the grand scheme, a lot of people, we suffer with pride of thinking that, oh, we've done good, but we're good individuals. But then when you compare yourself to Christ and God and how he truly sees, we all fall drastically short. And
Sure.
there are moments, definitely like in this case, where you get humbled, and it's a good reminder that the people that are glorified more are the ones that have to go through life, that are suffering. They don't have nearly as much, but they end up getting glorified more because of the fact that they're suffering kind of through this life. And I think that's a good reminder to have, and also a good reminder that we all are image bearers of God, and we have to kind of see each other that way as well, and kind of have that compassion, because once we go, because obviously capitalism is great in my opinion, but we have to, I think, sometimes separate the want of constantly trying to achieve more and trying to, or I guess not achieve more, but trying to get as much money as possible, and kind of understand there's other people that are suffering as well. And it's sort of this balancing act of trying to make sure that other people aren't suffering as much. And that's something that I've been wrestling with lately, is the idea that they're like the billionaires in this world in the United States have so much. I sometimes wonder, do you have enough? Like, can we just like, maybe, obviously you're if you're innovating and doing more, but then I see like billionaires that have, like, they're buying more material things, and I'm like, okay, maybe let's do like a nonprofit or something that then funnels that into doing more charity work. That it's just something that I've been wrestling with, and hearing you talk about like the lower income of society, where they work a half day and they get as much as you just made in an hour, and it just kind of puts things into perspective for yourself. And that's just something that I've been wrestling with a lot lately. The more I dive into my faith, and the more I understand, is how do we balance the two of money is obviously good because you can do great things with it, but then also balancing the want and the need to help people that are in those lesser and unfortunate situations.
Right. If I say the name Leon Levine, do you know who that is?
No, I do not.
Founder of Family Dollar. Family Dollar stores.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He started his business here in Charlotte, and I knew him for about 20 years. He was a customer of ours. He passed away about a year ago right now. If you drive through Charlotte, North Carolina, you're going to see the name Levine everywhere. And you think, well, this is a multi-generational family that's, been donating and giving money and helping causes for generations. But it's not. It's just one guy. You can't go down a major road in this city without seeing the name Levine something, right? And the day that I found out who that was, and I realized, wow, later on he actually became a good friend. I've listened to that man as we're doing work at his house, call other people of wealth, because he got a phone call from Second Harvest Food Bank or any other of the major charities here in Charlotte and around the country that said, hey, we need help, right? And for him to listen to him on the phone, hey, look, I'm going to put up 250 if you'll do this, right? And he would raise millions of dollars and then match it, things like this. I think that and very early on in my business career, I got to know people like Ross Perot and Roger Milliken, Milliken Industries, Nelson Bunker Hunt, and people like this through different relationships. And A, I learned that they're no different than we are. B, they suffer greatly because of their wealth. I mean, I mentioned in the book that some of the more unfortunate people that I know came from wealth. It's just one more challenge to be faced with and overcome. I have a brother-in-law that's worth, I don't know how much, a few $100 million. He used to own Double Bubble Gum.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, you've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know of anybody that I admire more because of how he handles that, how he very quietly helps people. And yet I see the challenges that he faces because people have this, oh, wow, I won't ever forget my sister telling me that a close friend of hers, after she got married, she asked my sister if they would pay off her mortgage.
Oh, wow. That's
She says, well, if you were my friend, you wouldn't, if you were my friend, you would do this for me. She says, well, if you were my friend, you wouldn't ask me, So it changes relationships. It changes how people view you. You really do find out who actually does love and care about you because those people don't care how much money you have. So money is a blessing. You have to understand it's just a tool to do things with. I think Forrest Gump said it's just one more thing or one less thing to worry about, right? And if you have any other view of it than that, you're in trouble. That's a lesson you have to learn. Money is not the answer. Money is not even close to being the answer. If you don't have other things in your life, if money's your God, what happens when that's gone? I mean, you will really find out what the world's about then. But anything that you put above your relationship with Christ can be your God. It can be another person. It could be your spouse or your kids. I see that a lot. A lot of people that I see is the ruler of their life is their children or sometimes even their pets, right? So be careful what you allow to take control of your life. I used to see a guy every Sunday morning as I'm driving to church, he's manicuring his lawn. I said, well, he's out worshiping, So, yeah, money's important. But it should not ever have anything other than the correct pace between balance with your family, with your mental pursuits, with your friends and all of that, your spiritual pursuits. It's just one more thing to help you to achieve balance in your life. You don't honor anybody by not being able to pay your bills, but who do you honor if the only thing you care about, worry about, and strive for is to have a little bit more, right? That's an empty road. That's a desert, is to just pursue money. And when you really get to know a lot of these people, some of them are just like that they just want more and more and more. But I think it would surprise you the number of people who are truly wealthy that learned that lesson before they became wealthy, and now they're helping people. A lot of wealthy people get a bad rap, but they're in the middle of doing excellent things in the middle of being criticized too.
Yeah.
So, so just a different perspective. But If your pursuit is money, you need to have something else to pursue.
Yeah. And I think more my focus a lot of the times is not the people that actually build businesses and build them from the ground up, and then they earn that wealth. It's more of like the individuals that I see, at least in certain areas where, like politics, for instance, where they go and then their net worth. It just seems like some individuals, I guess, like you say, give others a bad rap, and I think having the foundation of Christ, because then that will refocus what the most important things are in your life, and being able to give back is a definitely an important thing. So let's kind of in touch with that in terms of giving back and giving back to your family when you're building this business. Can you talk about the importance of building a business for your family, and how you intertwine family life with building a business, and how did you balance that?
That's an interesting question. We have a kind of informal saying here. You know what nepotism is, right?
Yeah.
So we have an expression that we keep nepotism in the family because we learned really early on that not everybody can do that. Uh, thank God we're able to work every day together, and not that it's conflict free, right? In fact, just the opposite. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of conflict to be able to get past things. I'm real big about, we all know what it means to have the elephant in the room, right? Well, we don't let the elephant in the room. We're able to manage that because as soon as there's a small little problem, we flesh it out. We talk about it. You just can't allow things to become bigger than they are, bigger than they should be before they're addressed. So we talk about everything. And I think that's worked for us. But working with family, I don't know how people do it, run a small business if they're married without having their spouse involved in it. Other people would have the exact opposite view. But for me, there's no way they're going to understand what's going on and why you have the emotions that you do, or just to be able to share it when things are going well, or to be able to just vent a little bit without somebody trying to figure out how to solve the problem. Sometimes you just need to fuss, did that today. And it can be very challenging, but at the same time, for us, it's worked because I think, keep the right perspective, and we all have the same value system. At the end of the day, this business is important, but it's pretty far down the list of what's most important. And I think for me, it's always been that way. I don't know why I've always viewed the business that I have to be not temporary, but not all important either, right? So I think the biggest thing is your perspective and to know why you're doing something. So back to that. If you don't know why you have the business or what goals, I think this is important too. A business exists for one reason, and that's to help you achieve your life goals, right? And I view the business as a financial vehicle. It just helps us to get to where we want to be, and it has the ability of doing that. Whether it be being able to take a certain amount of time off for vacations, being able to travel, which we're finally able to do, or if it's about retirement, being able to one day sell the business. I no longer have the illusion that like my daughter and her husband are going to take over the business, though if they do it would just be to inherit it and sell it. So it's more a matter of the business is more of just the financial vehicle, right? And which might be sold one day, right? So.
Awesome. So I normally like to wrap up different interviews with asking the same question. So Darrell, what do you do that you've been practicing, that you try to keep practicing, that's really improves your spiritual game and gets you closer with Christ?
Number one is I don't miss church. We didn't like COVID for a lot of reasons, and our church was one of those that was reluctant to not have physical services and was really quick to go back. So I'm very thankful for them for that. But I don't think people should be. We're not designed to worship alone. The online community that they don't ever go to the physical church. I want to encourage everybody. Look, you need to be in the pew, um, with fellow Christians, interacting with. I think that one thing our church really does push is home groups. I think we were part of one for 20 years, and I think that's very important. You just have to be around other believers because we weren't meant to go through this by ourselves. You just can't do it. And I think any other view is lacking. So if I can it's humanly possible for me to be in the pew on Sunday, no matter where I am, that's what I do. That's the foundation of it. Beyond that, just having quiet time, making, having you have to understand your biblical worldview, right? Why do we worship Christ? Why am I a Christian? Why do I want to be around other Christians? How to view our place in the world and in eternity. It's good to understand those things. And you have to be in a church, in my view, that preaches the Bible. It's not prosperity gospel. It's not sugar coated. You need to know what our responsibilities, obligations, and mission is as believers.
Great. Great answer, Darrell. So where can individuals find your book, and where can individuals find more about you?
I produce YouTube videos. We post about 4 a week. That's found under Darrell Thomas, An Excellent Life, which is the name of the book. So just YouTube that or Google that, and at least 4 times a week there's a fresh video. We just posted one today, but the book is available. It's not available at bookstores. I don't think there's a lot of that going on these days, not through anything other than the high-end publishers, but it's available online through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the rest. And the book has been a real blessing to me in the beginning. It was simply a bunch of notes to myself, kind of like Marcus Aurelius. Are you familiar with him from a Roman emperor? That's basically what he did, and that's where I got it. I just started writing down lessons and trying to figure out myself. So people ask me why I wrote the book. It didn't start out that way. Then I thought, well, I can pass these lessons on to my daughter. And eventually I said, well, I can actually turn this into a book, which has, again, been quite a blessing. But it's available online. And I encourage people to, if you get it, to let me know what you think and how you feel. And there's an email address where I can stay in touch with people about that. I'm always pleased when people reach out. So I'd love that.
Awesome, Darrell. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It's great. I appreciate it, Adam, and best of luck.
Thanks. This has been great. Hey, guys. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. I always enjoyed all the interviews that I do. If you are new to this channel or this podcast, please subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel, whichever way you are watching it. If you are on podcast platforms, listen up. Listen, I would like you to subscribe, obviously, and then leave the podcast a 5-star review, whether you are on Spotify or whether you are on Apple Podcasts. That helps the podcast grow. And as always, just share this podcast with your friends and family. Also, share this YouTube video if you just want to share the YouTube video as well. If you're here on YouTube, that is the best way we can grow this community as a whole. And go to adambuckingham.locals.com if you want to join the community and also support the podcast. So hopefully we can do bigger and better things and have bigger and better interviews, and I can interact with all of you all on a one-to-one basis. So go do that, and until next time, I hope you have a blessed week. Bye.